I actually resigned from my media career and said that I wanted to go to Ukraine and make a documentary project. I've been in media for about 10 years now. I worked on a documentary project and the project was called War Mothers. And it kind of answered the question, what happens to a mother in a time of war?
Hey, welcome to my channel. Today we have Stefan. Would you like to tell me a little bit about your media career?
Sure. I've been in media for about 10 years now, so we're talking about Melbourne, the Melbourne media industry. And I kind of started as a way that I thought would take me into filmmaking, but I realized that it was an entirely separate industry, entirely separate kind of career. So it turns out that my media career has been something that has operated on the side of my filmmaking endeavors. There's always been components or times in my life where I take time off the media career to actually go off and make films. There was a time in 2016 where I actually resigned from my media career and said that I wanted to go to Ukraine and make a documentary project. And then luckily at that point, my employer, one of the media organizations I've worked for now, that employer actually told me that they would hold on to my job if I didn't resign. I can go off for X amount of time. They would hold on to my job. They not only that they would actually help promote my project, and they would financially support it. Which is the best time in which both my kind of media and filmmaking careers kind of came into one. But yeah, I always just thought that stuff on screen is the connection, but media is now much more diversified. I started in TV, but now I'm working in digital and events and social media and all that kind of stuff. So it's been quite a diverse career that I have very much enjoyed. I guess it's mostly in a sales capacity, so very much like people-faced activities.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing about that is that skill translates to filmmaking. So it helps the idea of being an independent filmmaker is you're producing a film, whatever it may be. Producers need to be people. They need to understand communication skills and perseverance and resilience and all this kind of stuff that comes with dealing with people. And my media career has kind of given me that at the same time, which has been great. So they complement each other quite nicely, which I never expected, but it's been great.
Wow, we've got social media that's popped up as a keyword.
Yes.
And you mentioned marketing's a broad, term, but underneath that, or media.
Yes.
You've covered other areas. So
Yes.
social media, you mentioned there was.
So TV, I started
TV,
broadcast television, so at Channel 7,
Mm-hmm.
but then also events. Events is kind of like part and parcel of the media industry,
Yeah.
but kind of it's a mix of everything. I'm kind of selling all things at once.
Like behind the camera for TV, or
It's purely like the money side of things.
Yep.
So working with advertisers or media agencies who represent the advertisers to negotiate and manage and pitch ideas for their campaigns across whatever media publisher I'm working
also
at.
advertising.
Correct.
Which are some of the industries you've advertised or?
It's for media. So I work at a media publication and sell the advertising space at that media company. So for Channel 7, I was selling the ads for them. I then worked at Time Out. And so Time Out, I would sell the ad space to the advertisers, the events, the digital media. At that point it was print as well, so magazines. But yeah, I only sell the space for the publisher that I'm working at.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the terms and conditions when you're selling to, for example, companies like Channel 7? For example, is it a day, a week thing that you can say, I'm giving you this space here? Or is it more like content? Do you gauge on content? So if you think this is not a selling point, can you then tell them, could you give us a different type of content? Are you able to?
It's very fluid. So where I'm working now is actually the office of Smart Company, where we're at, private media. So I would mostly be selling content, digital content. The terms and conditions kind of like really it comes down to the money and whatever investment level that we agree upon. Dates are generally the other thing as well, so we're always working towards what kind of campaign time frame that they want. Things can only run at certain times, given the capacity of the media schedules and the personnel and people that we have here. So yeah, it's kind of, they're the two main things that we really kind of look out for. The third is really the content itself. So we got to agree on exactly what the content is going to be. It can be really a mix of things, just so long as it's kind of not offensive, not political in nature. I guess with what we're doing, we kind of, it can be, I guess, but it's never really come up as a point of conversation for my publisher. But yeah, it's just those three main things.
Like controversy, like how do you handle controversy?
Well, yeah.
Like do you have to gauge, because you said political realm is always changing.
Yeah. So luckily I haven't come across that much within my career. So especially within the past couple of years, for some reason there has been no scandals, fortunately, but that will invariably come up. There will be advertising campaigns. One of the key conversations happening in media at the moment is actually around, of many things, gambling, and whether gambling should be banned, and whether that's a concern for audiences or for the advertisers. Obviously, it's fine. The gambling organisations want to advertise, but the government is something that they're wanting to put some regulations and perhaps even ban it. So there's a bit of talk about that at the moment.
Is it your call to say, hey, we do have to take this off? Because I know that's why you haven't landed that. But
mostly,
that executive decision to say, hey,
it will be a managerial decision in conjunction with my own judgment as well. I'll have to notify them if we're going to pull any ad spends, because then that means less money for the organisation as well. So yeah, it's generally a tandem decision.
Which area of media do you enjoy the most? Because you transitioned from TV to filmmaking to.
Yep. I actually really love the events. I think that it's always an exciting thing to bring the audience to life, like see them in real life, inviting them to our events, but then the excitement of whatever the event may be. So for where I'm working now at Smart Company, we host this thing called The Pitch, where we invite startups and seed level small businesses and all that kind of stuff to pitch their ideas to a panel of judges, kind of like Shark Tank, to win a whole bunch of prizes. So going to those events and mingling with people there and having the advertiser there and then watching their happy face as all of their advertising kind of is executed at these things. So for me personally, like I found that the events have been really cool.
Can you tell me a little bit about how this company helps startups?
Cool. So where I work, it's called Smart Company, smartcompany.com.au, and it is a media publication that produces news and insights and resources that help startups and small businesses succeed and grow. Which is really cool. That's what attracted me to this place. I really understood and empathized with the mission and what they're trying to do. So what they do is basically, produce all this stuff to make sure that people understand exactly what's happening and what other people are doing, success stories, things like that, to kind of basically understand what they themselves need to do to succeed and grow. So,
that's great, because majority of the Australian companies are small to medium or medium.
Correct.
And starting out.
Yes.
So when startups come to you, you mentioned Shark Tank. Is it a bit like they have an idea, but they have to let you know where they're taking this idea, and then you would be able to come up with a strategy to help them?
That is specifically for the event, The Pitch. But in terms of our day-to-day, it is a website, smartcompany.com.au, where we'll go to read out our content. So we don't interact as much as we do in those events as we in our normal daily practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you promote for the startups once?
If there's an interesting story behind what they're doing, then yes, we will definitely promote some of the startups and their stories.
Yep.
For sure.
So it's more about gathering information and then presenting.
Correct.
That
Yeah.
as a media form, right?
Yeah.
So blogs and
Yeah, on the
Newsletters,
website
on
and,
the
and
website.
newsletters and social media. They're the three main things.
I can't wait to have a read.
It's fantastic content, so definitely check it out.
What's the turnaround time for churning out an article?
Well, they have, I think, between 3 to 5 full-time journalists, and they're producing probably more than 10 stories a day. So they're quite busy. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're calling up all their contacts. They're calling up the startups themselves, or they're calling whoever they're doing a story on and gathering all the information they can get. So yeah.
So smart
company.
You need journalists for the company.
Yeah.
And what are some of the other typical roles that
So what? Yeah.
hiring?
Yeah.
So for the audience out there that's searching for media related roles.
Yeah. So it's a relatively small company, smart company. So the other side of things is the commercial side. So what that is called editorial, or the journalists. There is an editor-in-chief that kind of looks after them as well. But then there's a commercial side, which I belong to. There was a small team of us, so I would look after all the relationships and all the campaigns and all the stuff, that kind of stuff. Someone manages me. But then there's also campaign management too. So whilst I manage some of the campaign, it really is the responsibility of someone else who, once I've gotten people to sign off and develop that kind of negotiation, the campaign managers will then figure out what assets the advertisers need to supply, working with them on the content and all kinds of stuff. So they're the two major components. The other side is really audience development, so the tech side of things. So developing the website, all the audience metrics, that kind of stuff.
Do you think about the type of audience that could potentially read? Do you have to
absolutely.
think about what audience you're reaching?
Yeah.
Before you write the content.
Yeah, that's a very big thing of what we do. Yeah, so I know that 81% of the audience of Smart Company are small business decision makers, leaders, owners, founders, all that kind of stuff. So that's the core audience, and that will dictate a lot of what we do and what everyone does, really. So yeah, it's a big thing.
What's the most exciting part of a campaign?
When it launches, so seeing the media actually kind of take place and become real, and then also getting the results as well. So if they want X amount of audience and all this kind of stuff, or X amount of page views or whatever, achieving all the campaign metrics is a very exciting thing. It's very fulfilling. The public relations.
Public relations,
We do to a certain extent, yeah. So for some of the big events that Smart Company does, so Smart 50 Awards and Pitch, they will hire a production crew to come and film it, and then we would. It's for promotional purposes, the video. So yeah, we would share it with potential clients or sponsors and anyone else who's interested in the event.
Do you think that helped with the shooting of The Rebel? I recently had a look at Stefan's short film, which was very informative. It covered so much history, and it was done in a very creative way, and it kind of softened, the blow a bit because of the content, which I'll insert the link in the interview for people that want to look at it closely when they get a moment. Would you want to let the audience know about the making of The Rebel?
Sure. So that is a film that I've been working on since 2020. So it's coming up to 3.5 years now. My grandmother is Ukrainian, so all my grandparents were Ukrainian, and they survived what's known as the Holodomor, which was the man-made famine in Ukraine in the 1930s. So during COVID, I wanted to go back and actually film more stuff in Ukraine. I've been doing that for a while, but I couldn't. So I decided to try and collect Ukrainian stories in Melbourne. So I tried interviewing my grandmother, who was still alive at that point. Sadly, she's passed away, but she had dementia, so she couldn't, unfortunately, remember her stories anymore. So I went to the community. I asked if there was anyone else that survived the Holodomor, and There were a couple of people, and we ended up meeting a woman by the name of Helena Slukovera, who told us her story about her grandfather, who had a quite a amazing experience. Like they tried to arrest him during this collectivization period, where Stalin had basically told all of Ukraine that any private farms were now public farms. They belonged to Stalin and they belonged to the government. So therefore, all the food that was grown on these private farms, they are now property of the government. So they went and collected all the food and left nothing for any of the Ukrainians, and that caused a big famine. So when this guy, his name's Maxim, when he was asked to join a collective farm, he basically said no, and they arrested him and they sent him away to a labour camp. And now this labour camp was a long way away. They put him on a train, and his journey was over 1,000 kilometres to this labour camp, and the labour camp was actually quite a horrible place, and he knew that if he stayed there he was going to die. So he escaped that camp. If they caught him, they'd probably shoot him. So this was by risk of death. And then he walked the 1,000 kilometres back, following the train tracks that they took him on, surviving by the kindness of strangers and eating whatever he could find, until he made it back home and lived until he was 95 years old. So we interviewed Helena in 2022. So quite some time after COVID, but it was I think it was 2021 actually. I can't remember now. Anyways, she told us her story, and we actually wanted to get more of the story, but unfortunately she passed away after our interviews. So, there was now this responsibility. This is, her final story. So, I wanted to complete it, and thus, I travelled back to Ukraine in July 2023 to film some recreations. So to properly kind of flesh out and, give some substantial content to the story. Which is now almost finished. We're in the final stages, so we're working on the edit, but then the music and the sound. But it's been quite a journey, a long emotional journey for this project.
Of course. So the version that you gave me is just a draft. It's not the
Correct.
final. Yep. I thought the music that you added really suits each scene. Yeah, you put a lot of thought into it. So the audience should definitely go see it.
Yeah, it's there. So what we call them is temp tracks. So temp tracks is something that we only put there as a temporary basis. We don't have the rights to it. We just get it from Spotify or wherever and put it in there. So it helps with pacing. And then once we've got the picture lock, so we won't be editing anymore. We then give it to the composer, who then writes some original music for us. So the music that you heard will not be in the final film.
Right. Yeah. Now you mentioned you want to interview somebody of Ukrainian background in the community, but in Melbourne.
Yes.
And then you managed to locate your female lead.
Correct.
Which I can't pronounce the name because
Helena.
Yeah. And I think she mentioned at the beginning, I think it actually makes sense that you gave the audience her background, because she talked about where she grew up and her grandparents and how that came about, and how people came in, soldiers came in and took away her grandfather. Right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Now you mentioned that this is just a draft. Are you adding on more to the storyline?
Not more to the storyline, it's just basically how do we construct the storyline. How does it make sense for the audience? What has the best emotional impact? The length, so that it's not going too long. It is a short film. Things like that. So that's what we're working on now. We won't add too much to it, but we will finesse it. I think it's at draft number 18 now. It's probably going to go to hopefully draft 20 or 21, and then we'll be done.
Okay, because you mentioned before that the campaigning as you were working for Smart Company, you got to see how people advertise and shoot the campaigns.
Yeah.
Do you think that helps with your project?
I wish it would, but it doesn't really. So when I'm at the events, I'm looking after the clients, and that production side of things is actually quite separate to what I'm doing. And we hire contractors, so I don't work with them. I actually don't even know who they are. So I have little connection actually with what they do at the events.
Any other projects coming up for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Not actually at the moment, no. So this has been so long in the making that I haven't picked up anything else recently. I finished a film in 2022, a short film. So, you know, maybe that's probably why I extended this film. The reason it's taken 4 years to make this particular film is number one, COVID, and number two, the war in Ukraine. So potentially, you know, there's just been delays in actually being able to achieve what we wanted to, but it is a miracle that we've actually come to the point we're at now. But once I finish this, I'm actually not sure what we're going to do next.
What drew you to the storyline of The Rebel?
It's a good question. Because there's many reasons now. For me, I think this is a very important story to tell. The original meaning behind it was because you know, I wanted to honour the stories of my grandparents. Because they told me these stories when I was young and I never recorded them, so I wanted to rectify that mistake, and you know, it was too late when I tried, so now this is the story that makes up for that. I want to tell positive stories about Ukraine because as I was growing up in the Ukrainian community, for some reason, always hear negative stories about Ukraine. I don't know why, but it was just always the case. And I just, as a filmmaker, I was like, well, you know what? If I'm going to do their stories, I'm going to make sure that people don't hear the negative stuff. They're definitely going to hear the negative stuff, but I want them to see the power, resilience, and hope that Ukrainians engender in themselves.
Okay.
And then lastly, the most important part is actually just to help people understand what's happening now in Ukraine. It's unfortunately, it's history repeating itself. It's Russian aggression that has happened over centuries. This is not something that's new. There was relative peace in Ukraine that kind of made people not pay attention to it, to not understand, and then now, you know, Putin decided to launch a full-scale invasion, and the world, the collective jaws of everyone watching just dropped, and we just couldn't understand what was happening. And this is a way to kind of help people.
I think it's good that the message you want to send is, you know, let's talk about something a bit more positive about, you know,
Correct.
The connection, right?
Yeah.
Connecting point. But I think let's not forget about some of the more real stuff, the raw stuff. Are you okay sharing the negative things? Like
In the film, or like about Ukraine, or
Ukraine? Because you mentioned, you know, people associate negativity about Ukraine.
it's one of the poorest countries in Europe. So you know, there always seem to be stories of disadvantage and things going wrong, or just just unfortunate stories. However, you know, it wasn't always the case. There were actually really nice stories that would still come out. But, you know, if you're just going to look at the past 10 years, so since 2013 when Maidan started in Kyiv, actually it's now over 10 years. Ever since then, you know, it's just been one bad story after another. So, yeah. I've been motivated to tell Ukrainian stories as a filmmaker since I think it was 2015, 2016, as a result of all that stuff, of what's happening in Donbass, MH17, Maidan, all this kind of stuff. I was like glued to my computer wanting to know exactly what the hell was happening over there.
How many times do you have to fly to Ukraine to...
Oh, I've been there many times. I've been there, I mean, like, since modern history started, kind of, you know what, I've been there about 7 or 8 times in the past 20 years. Yeah, so a few times.
So, that would have helped the making of The Rebel as well, yeah?
Yeah, of course, yeah, it helped definitely, because as I said, I just wanted to, they kind of gave me a passion for the country and the people. So I knew that, you know, if I'm that passionate about something, and filmmaking is my passion, that I would have to bring those worlds together. So this is the third short film that I've made in Ukraine about Ukraine.
Right. What's the other 2 films, other than The Rebel?
Sure. So before I made this, I worked on a documentary project. It was 2 short films, and the project was called War Mothers. And it kind of answered the question, what happens to a mother in a time of war?
Я гарантовано мала при цих пологах померти, тобто не вижити при операції.
because you know when you think about all the reporting that happens about war, you hear about the front line, you hear about the soldiers, you hear about all that stuff, but you never hear about the caring mothers of these boys and girls and everyone that gets sent away and to potentially die, and what's happening with them and how do they get involved, because there are some amazing stories. So I did one film as a War Mothers, and then we came back and we edited it, and then another story came up when I was back in Australia, and I said, well, I can't ignore this, I have to go back. So I quit my job in media, as I said, twice, to commit myself to this documentary project. And so the second story was about a woman by the name of Yana Zinkevich. She was 18 when the preliminary tensions came up with Russia and Ukraine in 2013 and 14. So she wanted to help at that point, but you know she didn't have any. She wanted to help in a medical sense. She wanted to be a doctor or a nurse or a paramedic or something. So unfortunately, she didn't have the experience, and then she got turned away from anyone that needed help. So she went off to the front line and watched YouTube videos and read books and all this kind of stuff, and taught herself first aid and saved over 180 lives. And then was inspiring the country, and then people started joining her, and she started this basically volunteer paramedic battalion called the Hospitaliers. It grew so much that the president of Ukraine at that point had recognized and gave her a medal of congratulations. And then one day, as she was driving away from her university, she wasn't even at the front line, her car slipped off the road and spun 7 times and then crushed her. And it crushed her spine, sorry. So it kind of, the surgery was so intricate that she required, they couldn't do it in Ukraine, so she had to be flown out to Israel for surgeons to piece her back together. But they said to her that she'll never give birth, that she'll never be pregnant, she'll never be a mum. The funny thing was that they didn't actually realize that she was pregnant, despite that. And when they eventually found out, they said, well, this will kill you because of the complications of your spine. So you know you can't go ahead with it.
Oh, to carry the baby to full term.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
what? There was abortion, was it?
Well, they said that there was a chance it could go ahead, but there's a very strong chance that she will die, or the baby will die, or they'll both die. So she went ahead with that chance. She went for it, and she survived, and the baby survived. And it was just this amazing story of how this woman's motherhood was shaped in this time of war, and she still now is very involved with what's happening, and she's a very big inspiration to
Wow.
the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your documentary was based on that?
Yes, that was the story of my documentary, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you launched that on any other?
Yeah, that's been and gone. We had the world premiere in 2019 at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York.
So now, for people that really want to go into the media field or filmmaking, do you reckon it's a requirement to have to study in a course to gain some ideas?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I studied, I'm now 10 years into both filmmaking and my media career. I only studied advanced diploma in advertising and marketing at Victoria University. I think at my first job at Channel 7 they didn't even ask about it. So for me, I always thought it's about who you know, and that's an important part of things. So which is great because you just got to go out and meet people, and then that you can do whatever you want. So eventually you'll meet the right people. It might take a while, but if that's all it takes, then you are guaranteed success if you just do that kind of stuff. So I studied filmmaking as well at Swinburne University back in 2005, but I never finished the course. In fact, I didn't even finish the first year. And I'm making all the films I want to, just short films, and maybe one day I'll move on to larger projects, I don't know, but I'm actually really happy with what I'm doing if that's all I did. So do I recommend it? Look, I might be controversial in saying no, I actually don't. I think you can go out and just make your own mark and meet the right people and work. It's, the 3 or 4 years that you might do in university, you could really jam-pack that in a really productive year with real life experience. Meeting people and making your own films and all that kind of stuff.
I think some great tips there. Go out there and speak to people that's already in the industry
Mm-hmm.
and just try to gain some experience.
Yeah.
Just slot yourself in. So the final question, lucky last.
Yeah.
What would be one piece of advice you'd like to share for people that hate their job at this stage, or for people that started studying? Because you mentioned a very good point is that you didn't have to complete something that you really are dreading, right?
Yep.
But it's okay to have it incomplete and go into the real world to gain experience.
Was I cutting you off?
No.
Okay.
I just think, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, the thing I've kind of learned was the leap of faith that I made for those first two films that I was talking about, War Mothers. And the leap of faith didn't pay off to begin with, and then it did. So what I wanted to do with my short film was to get this to a wide audience, and for people to understand the meaning behind the story, and for that understanding to change people. And it didn't really have that effect. So I had to quit my job again and go back to the war zones of Ukraine again to have a second shot. And then that second shot paid off. And I got the audience that I wanted, and I got the message and the story that I wanted to tell, and the film that I wanted to make. So the leap of faith. So my leap of faith was quitting my job, leaving everything behind, going to the war zones of Ukraine to tell the story. Leaps of faith work, even if it doesn't look like they do to begin with.
And also, it's okay to have moments where you think you failed, but
Yeah.
it's just you regathering, momentum. You never gave up on, that initial idea.
Yeah.
And quitting your job, going all in is something very powerful, But sometimes we got to say that, we don't have enough time in the day. So I think it is a wise decision to go that when you're super passionate about a project that you have so much belief in, absolutely take that leap of faith.
And what's your one piece of advice?
Oh my goodness, I'd say persistence.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Persistence, yeah. And there's got to be negative feedback one way or another, But you got to look at it as, okay, we're all human, and take only the constructive parts of it. There's no doubt that you're going to combat a little bit of, maybe negative feedback. But if you know that genuinely that you're coming from a good place, you might have to just soldier on, and not take it to heart.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And surround yourself with people that really understand you. Yeah, that support you, that bring you up. Okay, so on that note, I think we've got some great information there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.